Okay, in this recorded lesson bite, we're going to look at element 3, analyse and interpret units of competency and accredited modules. So in the first performance criterion, we need to select individual units or accredited modules to meet the client's needs. So we're looking specifically now at Susan. And in our group, I have shown you in the webcast that there is a training and assessment strategy. So as a trainer, as Susan's trainer, your RTO, which in this case is Evoke, would have provided you with the training and assessment strategy. So in order for you to select the individual unit to meet Susan's needs, you would look first at your training and assessment strategy and follow the schedule. So the way Evoke has designed it, we have it electronically for you, and you can go down to section 3 where we have a schedule there. So week 1 is the unit of competency code is listed there, and we have just named it the particular learning model that we chose. But there is the actual unit of competency for the nationally recognised training. So now that we've been able to determine that, we can actually download that from the National Register, and you all now know to go to training.gov.au and to deselect that superseded box. So I'll ask you all to do that now, and I need you to go and type in the TAEDES 402A code and just now download that and move that into your portfolio of evidence. So you can pause this film clip if you like and make sure that you achieve that right now. Right, so now that you've downloaded your TAEDES 402A unit of competency, we're now going to be able to open that up and analyse the links between the units. Oh, sorry, number 2, 3.2, we're going to analyse and interpret all parts of the unit. Okay, we've got it back up again there now. All right, so you'll see actually in your TAE 10 extract, it lists down the unit components there. So we'll have a unit title, unit descriptor, elements, performance criterion, range statement, required skills and knowledge, and an evidence guide. So here we can see unit descriptor, title, application of the unit. Let's just go and break some of those down. So we have our unit title. It's repeated there on the inside front cover. Then you have a unit descriptor. You also have an application of the unit. Now we need to look at these individual components to determine whether this is suitable for Susan's needs. So let's go now to the unit descriptor. It's a fairly generic statement there. So we'll go down to the application. This unit typically applies to a person working in or with training or assessment organisations as an entry-level trainer, teacher, facilitator or assessor. Well, we've met Susan. We know that she's a highly experienced school teacher, so maybe this unit doesn't apply to her. We better read on. It assumes that the person is working from a predefined training product and applying that product to meet client needs. So within the context of this application, we're talking about an entry-level trainer in the vet sector. So Susan very much is an entry-level trainer in the vet sector. She has not had experience at working from predefined training products, such as a training package. And this particular unit is really going to close that gap for Susan, because she's understanding all of the components of a training package and how to use that training package to meet her vet students' needs. So we've just determined that just from the application of the unit, that this is definitely going to meet Susan's needs. But while we're here, we'll go and explore some of the other components, because now in 3.3 we need to analyse links between the components to develop effective applications for Susan, for our client. So let's continue on and have a look. There was no previous versions of this. This is a current version. We have no licensing requirements there, unlike John with his forklift license. There's no prerequisites for the course. If you go to your TAE 10 extract, you can read a lot more about the employability skills and how they're embedded into a training package. And now we'll go and have a look at these elements and performance criterion. So here we are. This is largely our starting point for planning our design, for our lesson plans and the sequence of learning, and also in determining the evidence that we need to acquire for, to be able to deem somebody competent and then issue a qualification. So this is a very important component, but it does have to link in with other components as well. So what I can take you to now is we're here at the stage of element 3. So when you saw on that slide at the beginning, analyse and interpret units of competency in accredited modules, that was element 3. We are currently working at 3.3. So in your webcast that we had earlier in week 1, we've actually covered through all of element 1. As we've continued on since that webcast, on your course sites, you can see that we've covered all of these elements in performance criterion in element 2, and now in this actual recording we're working slowly through all of the elements in element 3 there. Okay, so we'll continue analysing some of the links. So the next component is our required knowledge and skills. So let's have a look at our first knowledge component, Australian Qualifications Framework Guidelines. Well, we haven't actually touched on that yet. So let's see what else is there. The functions and responsibilities of training package developers and course accreditation agencies, etc. So in your webcast, when I brought up the staff induction film clip, that was in 1.3, we did look closely at the functions and responsibilities of you as a trainer and assessor. We looked at the functions and responsibilities of the RTO, and we talked about ASQA and some of the other stakeholders there in VET. We also touched on those bigger stakeholders there in the film clip, history of VET. So we can see that already we've linked some of the required knowledge back to our 1.3 performance criterion there. So we also have skills, communication and interpersonal skills. So we'll talk a little bit more deeply about skills when we get to the assessment design module in weeks 3 and 4. One of the other components is the evidence guide. So we need to be thinking of our endpoint when we're designing. So we need to know what it is exactly that's required in order to issue a qualification, in order to be deemed competent at this nationally accredited level. So we have the critical aspects. So evidence of the ability to analyse a training package, examine its component parts, so that is the part we're doing now, examining the component parts. Identify relevant units of competency. Well, we've identified this as a relevant unit of competency for Susan. We need to demonstrate a minimum of 2 examples of analysing training specifications, including at least 1 training package, so that's what we're doing with our case study of Susan, and the other may be a training package or an accredited course, and this is where we're building our case study for John. So before I even began creating these lecture bites, I had to look at this evidence guide and work back about how I was going to design the presentation. So your case study 1 and case study 2 has been built specifically to link with this part of the critical aspects of the evidence guide. Now we'll talk about contexts shortly in element 4. There's also a component called the range statement. So when you have information in your elements and performance criterion, you can see that there's some bold words. And when you go down to your range statements, those bold words are actually defined more clearly for you. And a really integral part of this is understanding the difference between a may range statement and a must. So this is where we're contextualizing it for the client, and I will get onto that shortly with element 4. A lot of this crosses over, but depending on the needs of the client, their circumstances, depends on how you would structure and break down this definition. Now we've already in the webcast define client in that PowerPoint presentation as an individual learner, or like that would be in John's case, a candidate for assessment, which would be Susan because she wants some of those recognised prior learnings, but she will also be an individual learner in the units that she has a gap in. We also saw John's boss, or John's company, the new company that he works for, as an organisation with specific training needs. So John's company is also our client because they will be referring John for training to us. So that's just showing already how we have linked some of the range statement into our course. Okay, the rest of those aren't applicable in this case. So I've taken you right through all of the components.